I never thought a Christmas party would change my life, but here we are. It started with a look that lasted 3 seconds too long, and now I can't stop thinking about him. Let me tell you how this happened, because I'm still trying to process it myself. His name is Miles, and we've worked together for about 8 months now. Same marketing department, same floor, desks close enough that I can hear him laugh at something on his screen, but far enough that we're not constantly in each other's space. Before the party, I would have described him as just a colleague. Good at his job, friendly in that professional way where you exchange pleasantries by the coffee machine but never really talk about anything real. He has this dark hair that's always slightly messy, like he runs his hands through it when he's concentrating, and he wears these glasses that he pushes up his nose when he's reading something on his monitor. I'd noticed these things the way you notice anything about people you see every day, nothing more, or at least that's what I told myself. The Christmas party was at this hotel downtown, one of those corporate events where they rent out a ballroom and there's an open bar and a DJ playing music that's just slightly too loud for actual conversation. I almost didn't go. I was standing in my apartment that evening looking at myself in the mirror, debating whether I really wanted to spend my Friday night making small talk with people I already spend 40 hours a week with. But my friend Jordan had texted me earlier saying I needed to get out more, stop being such a hermit, so I put on a dark blue button-down that Jordan once said made my eyes look good, and I went. The party was exactly what I expected. Clusters of people from different departments, the smell of hotel catering, that particular brand of forced festivity that comes with work events. I grabbed a drink from the bar, some whiskey ginger that was mostly ice, and started making my rounds. I talked to Sarah from accounting about her kids, nodded along while Greg from sales told the same story about landing the Henderson account that he's told at least 5 times, and I was starting to think I'd made my appearance and could leave when I saw Miles across the room. He was standing near one of those tall cocktail tables, talking to someone I didn't recognise, and he was laughing at something they said. The thing about Miles's laugh is that it's genuine, you know? Not that polite chuckle people do at work functions, but real laughter that reaches his eyes. He was wearing a dark grey sweater that fit him well, and his hair was doing that messy thing it always does, and I found myself just watching him for a moment. Then, like he could feel my gaze, he looked up and our eyes met across the room. This is where everything shifted. Most of the time when you accidentally make eye contact with someone, there's this immediate break, right? You both look away, maybe offer a polite smile or nod, and that's it. But Miles didn't look away. He held my gaze, and there was something in his expression I couldn't quite read. Not quite a smile, but not neutral either. Something curious, maybe. Something that made my heart start beating faster. And here's the thing. Here's the moment that I keep replaying over and over in my mind. I didn't look away either. I held his gaze right back, and we stood there for what felt like an eternity, but was probably only 5 or 6 seconds, just looking at each other across a crowded room full of our co-workers and Christmas decorations and the muffled sound of Mariah Carey. When we finally did break eye contact, it was because someone walked between us, and I felt this strange sense of loss, which was ridiculous. It was just eye contact. People make eye contact all the time. But my hands were shaking slightly as I took a sip of my drink, and I could feel heat in my face that had nothing to do with the whiskey or the crowded room. I tried to focus on the conversation happening around me. I was standing with a group of people from my department, and they were talking about holiday plans, and I was nodding and saying the right things, but my mind was completely elsewhere. I kept thinking about the way Miles had looked at me, trying to decode what that look meant. Was it just friendly recognition? Was he surprised to see me there? Or was there something else? Something I was afraid to name because naming it would make it real, and real things have consequences. About 20 minutes later, I was standing alone near the windows looking out at the city lights, when I heard a voice next to me say, "Not a fan of the party scene?" I turned, and there he was, Miles standing close enough that I could smell his cologne, something clean and woody that made me want to lean closer. "It's not my natural habitat," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "You?" "I don't mind them," he said, and he was looking at me with that same expression from earlier, like he was trying to figure something out. But I usually end up finding a quiet corner. The small talk gets exhausting. "Exactly," I said, and I was hyper-aware of how close we were standing, how if I shifted my weight slightly our shoulders would touch. Everyone asking the same questions, giving the same answers. "What are you doing for the holidays? Any big plans? How about this weather?" Miles said, ticking them off on his fingers. And I laughed. "You forgot. How's that project coming along?" I added, and he grinned at me, and God, his smile did something to my chest, made it feel tight and warm at the same time. "The worst," he agreed. We stood there for a moment in comfortable silence, both looking out the window, and I was trying to think of something to say that wouldn't sound stupid when he spoke again. "I've been meaning to talk to you more at work, actually. You always seem interesting." I turned to look at him, surprised. "Interesting how?" He shrugged, and there was something vulnerable in the gesture. "I don't know. You have this way of really listening when people talk, like you're actually present. And you're funny, I hear you sometimes with the others. You have this dry sense of humour that catches people off guard." He paused, then added more quietly, "I like it." My heart was doing acrobatics in my chest. "I didn't think you noticed me that much," I said, and immediately regretted how honest that sounded. "I notice you," Miles said, and the way he said it, quiet and deliberate, made me meet his eyes again. We were doing it again, that too long eye contact thing, and this time we were close enough that I could see the flecks of gold in his brown eyes, could count his eyelashes if I wanted to. "I've noticed you for a while now, actually." "Miles," I started, not even sure what I was going to say, but someone called his name from across the room, and the moment broke. He glanced over his shoulder, then looked back at me with what seemed like regret. "I should probably go do the social thing," he said. "But maybe we could talk more, later or sometime?" "Yeah," I managed. "I'd like that." He smiled, squeezed my shoulder briefly, a touch that lasted maybe 2 seconds, but that I felt long after he walked away, and then he was gone, absorbed back into the crowd. I stood there by the window, my shoulder still warm from where he'd touched it, trying to understand what had just happened. I didn't stay much longer after that. My head was too full, and I needed to be alone to process. I said my goodbyes, grabbed my coat, and headed out into the cold December night. The walk to the subway was about 10 minutes, and I spent the entire time replaying the conversation, analysing every word, every look, every pause. He'd said he noticed me. He'd said he'd noticed me for a while. What did that mean? Was I reading too much into it? Was this just friendly coworker interaction, and I was projecting something onto it because of feelings I hadn't even admitted to myself until tonight? Because here's what I was starting to realise as I rode the subway home, watching the dark tunnel walls flash by. I had feelings for Miles. Real feelings. The kind that made my stomach flip when I saw him, that made me pay attention to what I wore on days I knew we'd have meetings together, that made me look forward to going to work in a way that had nothing to do with the actual job. I'd been pushing these feelings down, not examining them too closely, because Miles was a coworker, and also because he was a man, and I'd spent most of my life not really thinking too hard about what that meant about me. I'm not someone who had a big coming out moment or a dramatic realization. It's been more of a gradual understanding, like a picture slowly coming into focus. I dated a woman in college, Emily, and it was fine, nice even, but there was always something missing that I couldn't quite name. After we broke up, I told myself I just wasn't a relationship person, that I was focused on my career, that I was too busy for dating. But the truth I was finally letting myself acknowledge as I climbed the stairs to my apartment, was that I'd never felt that spark with any of the women I'd dated. And now, standing in my living room, taking off my coat, still feeling the ghost of Miles's hand on my shoulder, I was feeling that spark so intensely it scared me. I didn't sleep well that night. I kept thinking about the way Miles had looked at me, the things he'd said, trying to decide if I had the courage to do anything about it. Because if I was reading this right, if he was saying what I thought he was saying, then this was a moment. This was one of those sliding doors moments where what I did next would matter. I could ignore it, pretend the conversation never happened, keep things professional and safe. Or I could be brave. I could acknowledge what I was feeling and see if maybe, just maybe, he was feeling it too. Monday morning came too fast. I got to work early, made myself a coffee, sat at my desk and tried to focus on emails. But I kept glancing over at Miles's desk, which was still empty. He usually got in around 9, and I found myself watching the elevator doors, waiting. When he finally arrived, carrying his usual travel mug and messenger bag, my heart started racing. He looked over at me as he walked to his desk, and he smiled. Not his polite work smile, but something warmer, more personal. I smiled back, and even that small exchange felt charged with meaning. The morning passed in a blur of spreadsheets and conference calls, but I was hyper-aware of Miles's presence. Every time he got up to go to the printer or the break room, I noticed. Every time he laughed at something, I looked up. It was like that night at the party had turned up the volume on everything about him, made me unable to ignore what I'd been successfully not thinking about for months. Around lunchtime, I was in the break room, waiting for my sad desk salad to heat up in the microwave, when Miles walked in. We were alone, the first time we'd been alone since the party, and the air felt heavy with everything unsaid. "Hey," he said, moving to stand next to me, close enough that our arms almost touched. "Hey," I replied, trying to sound casual despite my racing pulse. "So, about Friday night," he started, and I could hear nervousness in his voice, which somehow made me feel better. I meant what I said, about wanting to talk more. I turned to face him fully. I meant it too. He smiled, relieved. "Good. So, this might be forward, but would you want to grab dinner sometime? Like not a work thing, just us." This was it. This was the moment. I could make an excuse, laugh it off, keep everything in the safe zone of plausible deniability. Or I could jump. "I'd really like that," I said, and watching his face light up made me feel like I'd made the right choice. "Yeah?" He was grinning now, and it was adorable. "How about Wednesday? There's this Thai place near here that's supposed to be good." "Wednesday works," I said, just as the microwave beeped. Neither of us moved to get my food. "It's a date then," Miles said, and the way he said date, with intention, with clarity, made it clear this wasn't just co-workers getting dinner. This was something else, something new, something that terrified and excited me in equal measure. Wednesday couldn't come fast enough and also came too fast. I changed my outfit 3 times, finally settling on dark jeans and a grey Henley that Jordan had helped me pick out months ago. I met Miles at the restaurant, a small Thai place with warm lighting and the smell of lemongrass and chili in the air. He was already there, sitting at a table near the window, and he stood up when he saw me, which was such a small gesture, but it made my heart do that flip thing again. "You look great," he said as I sat down, and I could feel myself blushing. "So do you," I said, because he did. He was wearing a dark green button-down with the sleeves rolled up, and his hair was doing its thing, and I wanted to reach across the table and touch him. We ordered food, pad thai for me, and some curry dish for him, and then we just talked. Really talked, the way we hadn't been able to at the party or at work. He told me about growing up in Oregon, about his family, about how he'd always known he was gay, but it took him until college to actually say it out loud. I told him about my own journey, the confusion and the slow realization, the fear of naming what I was feeling, and it felt good to say it, to hear myself say the words, "I think I might be gay," or "bi, I'm still figuring it out," and to have him just nod like it was the most natural thing in the world. "You don't have to have it all figured out," Miles said, reaching across the table to touch my hand. "I'm still figuring things out too, just different things. Life's messy and complicated, and that's okay." His hand was warm on mine, and I turned my palm up so our fingers could interlace. It was such a simple thing, holding hands across a table, but it felt monumental. It felt like claiming something, like saying yes to a question I'd been avoiding for too long. We stayed at that restaurant for 3 hours, long after we'd finished eating, just talking and laughing and holding hands like teenagers. When we finally left, stepping out into the cold night air, Miles turned to me and said, "Can I walk you home?" "I'd like that," I said, and we walked slowly through the city streets, our shoulders bumping occasionally, talking about everything and nothing. When we got to my building, we stood on the steps, neither of us wanting the night to end. "I had a really good time," Miles said, and he was standing close enough that I could see my breath mixing with his in the cold air. "Me too," I said. "Really good." "Can I kiss you?" he asked, and the fact that he asked, that he wanted to make sure, made me like him even more. "Please," I said, and then his lips were on mine, soft and warm and perfect. It was gentle at first, tentative, and then deeper, more sure. His hand came up to cup my face, and I wrapped my arms around his waist, pulling him closer. When we finally broke apart, we were both smiling. "Wow," Miles said softly. "Yeah," I agreed. "Wow." We kissed again and again, standing on those steps like we had all the time in the world. Eventually, reluctantly, we said goodnight, and I floated up to my apartment, touching my lips, still feeling the warmth of his kiss. That was 3 weeks ago. 3 weeks of more dinners, of movies at his place where we spend more time kissing on his couch than watching the screen, of slowly navigating what this means at work. We're keeping it quiet for now, not because we're ashamed, but because it's new and precious, and we want to keep it just for us a little while longer. But sometimes at work I'll look up and catch him watching me, and he'll smile and I'll smile back, and it feels like we're sharing the best secret in the world. I never expected a too long glance at a Christmas party to lead here. I never expected to find someone who makes me laugh and makes me brave and makes me want to be honest about who I am. But here we are, Miles and me, figuring it out together, one day at a time. And every time I see him, every time he takes my hand or kisses me or just looks at me with those warm brown eyes, I'm grateful I held his gaze that night. I'm grateful I didn't look away. Because sometimes the scariest thing, holding eye contact when every instinct tells you to break it, staying in the moment instead of running, being honest about what you feel, sometimes that scary thing leads to something beautiful. And this, what we're building together, this is beautiful. This is real. And I can't wait to see where it goes.